It is a beautiful fall day here in Massachusetts, and the pool's almost done. The fence finally went up. This is my parents' place, so I don't own any of this. So when I ask you to go click that Patreon link down below to support me, don't worry, I'm not like rolling in it here. I'm just lucky enough to be able to keep my cars here until they evict me. But the Porsche has had quite a bit of work done to it recently up at KMC in Lawrence, Massachusetts, Catchall Motor Company. And that means it's drivable again. So let's get in, we'll bring it out of this garage, and then I'll tell you all about what has gone on with this car in the last few months. Everybody loves a hard neutral. You always get comments on that in Wine Your Room magazine. Why do you do that? Well, because I don't really want to lurch the car forward. Granted, I do have my foot on the clutch. There we go. Let's take a quick walk around. I want to show you the car and under the hood. So if you don't already know what it is, it's a 1988 3.2 liter Carrera. This is just a 911. It's not a 930. It's not a 964. It's just a 911. These cars, I get asked that all the time. Well, what number is it? That's it. It's a G body. So after this, the year after this, in '89, was the 964. All the turbos, the wide bodies, those were 930s. But the narrow bodies like this are not 930s. The car has a lot of goodies on it. So the wheels are the 16-inch Fuchs. They are the 930 turbo wheels, as well as brakes front and rear are straight out of the turbo. So those are also 930. These center caps I did not have for a very long time until a friend of mine bought a defunct 944, couldn't get it titled, eventually had to scrap it or sell it for whatever. And I was lucky and I got those center caps. So the car is complete. Takes like 11 or 12 liters of oil, so warming this car up is not like normal cars. Warming this car up is a game of patience. I've got Schroth Hans harnesses in here. I don't use them because if I were to get in an accident, I would like a little bit of give for my neck, and I don't really want to get whiplash. And I would like to survive an accident, not just with a clean body, but without a death certificate. So the car is pretty low, and that means getting it out of my driveway is even a chore. See, and anytime anyone else drives it, everything gets all screwed up. So my dad had the car. Now nothing makes sense. Such a smooth engine. It's so robust. These things last forever if you take care of them. This one only has 86,000 miles on it, and it definitely used to see some track time. It hasn't anymore now that I've got it. Maybe it will in the future. Maybe I'll take it back out. But let's talk about what's been done to it in the last few months. So I dropped the car off up at KMC for two reasons. Number one, the car pulls to the right under braking, and it would lock up that right rear. So if I were to really stand on the brakes, it would lay a big patch of rubber on that right rear tire. Number two is when we were doing an oil change up in New Hampshire a long time ago, we noticed that the right axle boot on the inside near the differential was just torn, and it had spewed oil all over the place. So I really felt bad driving the car. I felt like every time I drove it, I was probably hurting it, and that's why I didn't see a whole lot of miles, because I was trying to just figure out what I was going to do. The other thing about this car, and I will admit, when I bought it on an impulse, and that means that I didn't do a PPI. I'll be honest. I bought this car on a whim. It looked good, and I knew nothing about it. So took it home and hoped for the best. This is really the first time it's been gone over in a comprehensive way, and I got a nice sheet of 14 items that could be done with the car. Nothing major though, which is good. So obviously he indicated that yes, we want to replace that axle. It's a lot cheaper to replace the axle than to rebuild it with that boot. They don't really do those little CV boots. The other thing was that I noticed the steering in this car was it would knock a little bit side to side. And we replaced the inner and outer tie rods up front, and those were all worn and destroyed. That made a huge difference. To try to counteract some of the issues with the braking, we rebuilt those calipers in the rear. I really should have done all four. I only did the rears. The pressure seals in the rear were, as he described them, as Tim described them up at KMC, the worst he's ever seen. They were incredibly tapered, and hopefully I'll show you a picture in the B-roll. But yeah, this car definitely needed a bit of love, and yeah, that's mostly what we did. We also did an oil change, and yeah, I mean, with a few little TLC items here and there once in a while, these cars last a really long time. But you know, given the fact that it's 31 years old, exactly as old as me, because the build date was actually April 1988, and I was born in April of 1988, it's gonna see some wear and tear, and you've got to take care of it, just like me, which is why I just got back from running, and then this is my little gift to myself, is to go drive my 911. I love this engine because it just has torque immediately. There's no waiting for anything. I mean, it's not a super potent engine. It's not crazy, but this is so easy to drive. You got to get used to the pedals a little bit because they're floor mounted, which means that instead of being like mounted up here and going back and forth, they're mounted into the floor. So they kind of do this weird like elliptical motion. And that can be a little strange for people to get used to. This has the G50 gearbox, so it's a lot more forgiving than the 915 gearbox found in earlier SC and Carrera models, which means that you can kind of just, it'll find itself. The synchros are a lot more forgiving. It doesn't have to be within like 50 RPM to just get into the gear. Definitely love the 915 gearbox. I've driven them and they're really rewarding because when you can do it right, you feel like a hero. But day to day, and if I had to drive in traffic or anything like that, that would not be great. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this also got a four-wheel alignment, which has just transformed how this drives, because before it was on full race tilt crazy boy setup with negative 2.8 degree camber in the front and like negative 3 in the rear. It's still pretty aggressive, but the front right, I thought they were all equal. They were not. The front right was actually at like negative 3.2 or something ridiculous like that. So the car followed tracks in the road like you would not believe. And it just, now the car, it's still a very aggressive alignment, but it drives so much nicer, and you know, I can let go of the steering wheel and life doesn't just come at me like fury. It's just drivable. So highly recommend if you've got an old car. Sometimes you overlook stuff like that. You're like, oh, I haven't gotten alignment in a while. It might be just totally zonked. So it's worthwhile to go out and figure it out. On the dashboard of the 911, we've got the classic gauge cluster. This is rotated so that way I can see my tachometer hit redline right in front of my eyes. When it's down like this, especially with the old steering wheel, it could get lost. You might not see it, and you just don't want to over rev the engine. It's kind of a kitschy thing. And then a lot of folks like myself, we turn the speedometer to match, so that way the zeros are pointed in the same direction. Very simple. Some people hate it. Too bad. Over here we've got fuel level, we've got oil level, which is very cool. So when I lift off the throttle, you'll see that needle go up, because what's actually happening is there's a, you know, an oil reservoir. It's a dry sump system. And let's see, I can't turn around there because I will probably damage my car. You'll see it level up because now there's less oil going through the car because there's not load on it. When I apply throttle, or when I apply manifold pressure, you'll start to see that come down because it's pulling oil from the reservoir. I know, I'm sorry, I'm talking about this very slowly, and I get it, but thanks for bearing with me here. Then we've got oil pressure, probably one of the most important gauges on there, because if you've got no oil pressure, you are certainly going to blow your motor. Is that you don't have to drive crazy fast to get some thrills out of them. They're really rewarding at these kind of like 40 to 60 mile an hour speeds. Now, I was driving the 600 LT the other day for Winding Road magazine, and it's a blast, but you've got to really push it. But listen to this. What a great sound. The car still pulls to the right a little bit. It's been repaired quite a bit with that rebuild. You'll hear some gear whine when you get into fourth. I think it's straight cut, not positive. That's my guess. Maybe some of you Porsche files can tell me. Not the most amazing turning radius, but it does do the job. On Toyo R888Rs, you do have to have some mechanical sympathy for this gearbox. I got a comment on the Targa video on Winding Road magazine about like, hey, you should shift faster, but like, not all gearboxes want to be shifted quickly. Especially these old ones, there's a patience that's required. You let them tell you when to shift. You don't just slam it into a gear. There is mechanical sympathy that is required. drive this more. I'm a little out of practice. But thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to, of course, respect the drive and enjoy the next couple months, because this is it, really. The winter is coming. The cars are going away unless you live in California, in which case hopefully I'll be out there visiting you so I can drive some of your cars and enjoy your extended summer, spring, whatever. But until next time, I'll see ya.